Hi everyone, it's Jim. This is Great Books, Big Ideas, where we talk about great books and interesting themes and classic books and new books and all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, today is a reading update day. I haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks, so I have lots of goodies for you to discuss today. Books that I've finished, mail time. We have some active reads, some new reads, a microhaul. And by microhaul, I mean one book. And yeah, we'll see what else comes up. We'll read a couple poems, and that should be a lot of fun. Okay, reading update time. I don't know if I have discussed finishing this book yet or not, because I already reviewed it, did a video on it, but it's The Honesty Crisis by Christian B. Miller. This is a brand new book out in May 2026, Preserving Our Most Treasured Virtue in an Increasingly Dishonest World. It was a good read. I did a very thorough video on it, and I hope you get a chance to watch it. And some of you may want to read this book. I thought it would be a good book for a discussion group too. Anyway, so that's all I'll say about that for now. I also finished The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. This is just a terrific read, very, in some sense, challenging. Not that it was like the prose was all that hard, but just these like overflow of ideas and history and analysis. It was pretty overwhelming, but in a good way. A book that I hope to come back to. I did a whole review video on this. A lot of the stuff I finished, I have done videos on. Next was from the this volume. Let me see if I can find it. Well, the book isn't on the shelf. It must be downstairs, but it's the volume of the great book set that contains the American State Papers and also the Federalist Papers. So I read a sampling of Federalist Papers for the my year one reading plan playlist, and there's a video on that. Also, I read some Adam Smith. Here's Adam Smith. And I read a few chapters from The Wealth of Nations for the reading list. That was interesting because I hadn't read Adam Smith before. Also, I don't have the volume with me because it's in my 1990 set, which is all the way downstairs. And that is de Tocqueville, some chapters from Democracy in America. And I just did a video on that. I think I posted it yesterday. And then a couple other books I finished are this one, a Penguin Classics edition of poetry by Lipo and Dufu. A nice volume. It's filled with notes. Most of the book is actually introductory material and commentaries. It's very scholarly, and let me give credit to the man who put this together. Poems selected and translated with an introduction and notes. He did it all. Arthur Cooper for Penguin Books. The Chinese calligraphy is by Shui Jiantung. First published in 1973. I think this is a newer printing. This was a good read. I have to confess I didn't read all of the introduction and notes. I just focused on the poems. You get a pretty small sampling of poems from these absolutely brilliant Tang Dynasty poets. Essential reading if you're into Chinese literature, of which I don't know a ton about, but I know that Li Po and Du Fu are up there in the pantheon of poets. We're talking here about the years 701 to 762 for Li Po, and Du Fu's dates are 712 to 770, so 8th century AD, or Common Era in the Tang Dynasty in China. A lot of great stuff happening in China at that time period, which was really coincident with what we call the Dark Ages in Europe. So yeah, it's interesting. I wish there were more poems in here, but this was a nice introduction, and there's tons of context if you want to learn all about sort of the details of Chinese poetry and the way they put their lines together and the rhythms and the symbolism and the common themes. And then in the notes for each poem, he talks so much about cultural context, and it's a real education. But I was just kind of hunting around for poems that I like. So I thought I would share a couple they're all short poems, but this is a short one by Li Po, and then Li Po, and one by Du Fu. So this is one of the Li Po poems. It's called Quiet Night Thoughts. Before my bed, there is bright moonlight, so that it seems like frost on the ground. Lifting my head, I watch the bright moon. Lowering my head, I dream that I'm home. And then let's read one of the Du Fu poems, and this one's called Night Thoughts Afloat. It's actually a Chinese sonnet. By bent grasses, in a gentle wind, under straight mast, I'm alone tonight, and the stars hang above the broad plain, but moon's afloat in this great river. Oh, where's my name among the poets? Official rank? Retired for ill health. Drifting, drifting. What am I more than a single gull between sky and earth? If you're thinking about reading this, just buyer beware that there's probably only about 40 poems in here between the two poets. It's mostly notes and commentary. Next up, what else did I finish? Oh, I just finished, I think it was yesterday, On Christian Doctrine by St. Augustine. This was a much shorter work than City of God, and an odd book. I will give you a little scan of the table of contents, and even by the end of the book, he kind of apologizes and says, well, I let this book get out of hand a little bit. It went a little longer than I wanted it to, and he does ramble somewhat, but it's about, in a lot of ways, how to read and write within the Christian tradition. The author divides his work into two parts, one relating to the discovery, the other to the expression of the true sense of Scripture. So there's a lot in here about signs, about interpretation, about how do you establish guidelines and rules for interpreting Scripture correctly, rightly. And it's a complicated topic, and he digs into that quite a bit. And he goes off on a lot of tangents, but it's filled with examples. Again, you can kind of see he straddles two worlds. He's got one foot in the classical, ancient Greco-Roman tradition. He was schooled in rhetoric. He knows his literature and philosophy and all that. And some of that rhetorical analysis is brought to bear, applied to reading of Christian scripture. But then he's got the other foot in Christianity, which he is one of the most important church fathers. He is like laying the template for how to go about reading scripture. So yeah, it was a relatively short read. I don't know quite what to make of it. There are some chapters were more interesting than others, but I am going to celebrate that I have finished this Augustine volume, and I'm going to now ceremoniously place it back on the shelf. That's volume 18. And I've already picked up volume 19 as I'm kind of working my way through the red color here. I'm starting into Thomas Aquinas. This is a 2-volume assemblage of a lot of the Summa Theologica. I don't think it's the whole thing, but it's enough. And God knows how long it's going to take me to get through this. But I think my my mission or my program is going to be just to read a little bit every day, probably at night. I'll keep it by the bed, and I'll read a couple chapters at a time, and just slowly walk my way through and see how it goes. Started it last night, and yeah, so far so good. So what else? That's it for the books that I've finished. Now, I think it's time to read some mail. Yes, I got a package. I got a package in the mail. I'm going to open it up for you guys. And this was a book. I know what this is because I requested a review copy. And let's open it up. This is a book called What's So Great About the Great Books? Why You Should Read Classic Literature, Even Though It Might Destroy You. What a title. Wow. That is by Naomi Kanakia. Here's a picture of the author. Let's read about her. Naomi Kanakia, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Kanakia writes a popular literary blog, Woman of Letters. Does anyone know Woman of Letters? I'll have to check it out. That's been praised by the New Yorker, Vox, and New York Magazine. She is also the author of 3 YA novels and a literary novel for adults. Okay. This book, this did not come with any publicity sheet at all, so I'm just going to rely on the jacket copy. Our publication date is 2026, so this is a newly published book, and it's published by Princeton University Press. And you might, I don't know if you can stay, we're running a sale. I don't know if these books are still on sale. But anyway, I was perusing that site because of the sale, and this one caught my eye. So I put in a request for a review copy, and they said, sure, I'll send it in the mail, and they did. So thank you, Princeton University Press. Here's what the jacket copy says. When she was in her early 20s, then aspiring writer Naomi Kanakia set out to read the great books, humankind's most highly regarded literary classics representing the best that human beings have thought or said, as determined by the 2 elderly intellectuals who'd written the guidebook she consulted. After 20 years, she has made her way through about 2/3 of these books, and she's found reading them to be an immensely pleasurable and insightful activity. How wonderful. Plato, Milton, Tolstoy, Proust, all those dead guys, their books have stood the test of time. Preaching to the converted here, Naomi, preaching to the converted, but I'm here in the pews cheering you on. But since beginning her journey, Kanakia has found that although reading the great books is part of a long-standing tradition of engaging with the thought of previous generations, it is also a highly contingent activity that arose out of a specific time and place, the brainchild of a small group of early 20th century popularizers associated with Columbia University and the University of Chicago. And people have always been skeptical about the idea of reading the great books, asking if this is truly a realistic or even desirable goal for the ordinary person. A more recent and growing group of great book skeptics asks if the works are too problematic, reactionary, and irrelevant to bother reading. All right, so the challenge is thrown down. Kanakia, a self-described left-of-center person, grapples with these objections, attempting to restore context for the great books, even as she sticks up for them. Because books that expose us to fundamental truths about the nature of beauty and reality are worth fighting for. I'm going to do a whole review of this book for sure, and it's not going to take me long to read it. But I'll just give you a sense of the contents here. Why should I read the great books? What do you mean by the great books? Have people always read the great books? Isn't it true that the great books are too difficult to read on your own? No. Where did your list of great books come from? Aren't the great books kind of problematic? Why not read other books that are equally beautiful but have better politics? Does it matter what we read? Isn't it more important to develop our thinking skills? How do we know whether a book is great? Why do we need a list at all? When we say the great books are worth reading, do other people hear white men are inherently superior? Can't reading the great books be psychologically damaging for marginalized people? I hope not. Weren't some of the great books written by reprehensible people? Yes, they were. What if at the end of the day, I simply prefer to read other books? I read what you want to read, right? But those are great, discussion starter questions. I like it sounds like it's going to be dialectical. We have acknowledgments and appendix. How do I start reading the great books? We have notes. What else? It looks like she has a list. She actually has a list of the great books that she went through and where that list came from. So I am really excited to read this book. I think it's going to be a hoot. It's going to be fun. I can already tell it's a book that's pitched for a younger demographic than myself. That's okay. I'll be young at heart. And it's going to be fun to read such a book. Like, what is the status of the great books these days? What's the appeal to younger generations? I hope there's still an appeal. It sounds like there was for Naomi Kanakia. So stay tuned. We're going to review this real soon. Wrapping up books. Now that I'm finished St. Augustine, and I'm also working my way through this year one reading plan, trying to get caught up a bit. And so the next one is a book I've read before, but I'm gonna look it over again and maybe reread it again. It's short, and that's the Communist Manifesto, but I haven't restarted that. But I'm really eager to get back into novel writing because I've been reading a lot of political theory and economics and stuff like that, and you can only stand so much of that. But so I am getting back into some things. So I'm starting to dip back into Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman. Still very much at the beginning, but it's a really good book. And I'm getting closer to finishing Absalom Absalom by Faulkner. This is a challenging modernist novel, but I love the writing. It's very absorbing, but it's difficult. It's sometimes slow going. It seems to be getting harder the longer I go through it. I have not been reading, but I want to get back to finish The Rainbow. I'm not too far from the end. This is D.H. Lawrence. Same for The Remains of the Day by Ishiguro. I did make a little more progress in this, but I haven't picked it up in a week or so. But I will get back to that. One new book I'm reading, and this clearly stems from my recent read of The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt, and that is One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. One reason I picked this up, I got this about a year ago, I think at a library sale, and it's short. It's short, and this would be my first Solzhenitsyn book, and a lot of his books are long, so I'm going to I did start it, but I'm only like 18 pages into it. It's about the Gulag, and, totalitarianism, I'm sure. My Microhaul, the one book, I've been walking outside more. We've had some nice May and June weather, and I'm like making the rounds of the little free libraries. So I don't usually find much, but it's a hit or miss affair with those. But I did find this John le Carré book, The Secret Pilgrim. And I think I read a chapter or so. And John le Carré is an author I've heard good things about. I don't tend to read spy fiction, but I've heard so many good things about him. I really want to give him a chance. So I'm going to read this one. I also last year, let me see if I can find it on the shelf. I got The Tailor of Panama by him. It's in a similar cover, like yellow, and I didn't read that one yet. I think I'm going to read The Secret Pilgrim first because I've heard of this one and I haven't heard of the other one. So maybe this is a more important book or maybe a better entry point. I know nothing. It is about George Smiley, his famous character. So, yeah. So anyway, priorities are going to be reading this one, What's So Great About the Great Books, finishing up my year one reading plan. I'm going to be reading the Communist Manifesto and then an Ibsen play, and then one more reading from like a 20th century scientist, I think, called What is Life? And that will wrap up that. So I'm making a push to get through year one. So I think by the next reading update, we'll start seeing some new works popping into the flow. And I hope to update you soon. I hope you're having a lot of time to read and getting through some books. I hope you enjoy what you're reading. Let me know what you've finished, what you're actively reading, and if you have any reactions to these books. As always, you can comment down below. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.